Welcome to Tunnel Vision Athletics, where real athletes and coaches drop real game. If you're an up and coming athlete with dreams of playing at the next level, you're in the right place. We sit down with former coaches, teammates, and insiders who've been through it all, from college recruiting, scholarships, setbacks, and success. Our goal is to give you the tools, knowledge, and a mindset to take your game beyond high school. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you find it helpful. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode. Today, we're talking more than just recruiting. We're talking about how to thrive in college softball and be able to win after your college career is over. Today, we have an amazing opportunity to talk to Coach Ashley Carter, who brings years of experience across Division One, NAIA, pro ball, and now who even owns her own company, which helps teams and athletes navigate recruiting, mental toughness, and overall peak performance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and does your company also help navigate NILs and navigate the transfer portal as well?
Yeah, so not as much NIL, but the transfer portal is a part of the process. So yeah, I can help navigate there too.
Okay. And when somebody is a part of your program, um, what does that look like as far as not only as far as when helping through the recruiting process, but also when they're off and they actually sign? What does that look like in that relationship to player coach?
Yeah, so my program in general is called 360 Athlete. So we're talking about developing the complete athlete. So we want to develop the human, the student, and the competitor. So there's some pre-work that goes to that, and there's some post that goes to that. So in the very beginning, most times people come to me is because they want this opportunity to be recruited. So that's sort of the shiny object that we use to help athletes connect with our program. However, once we get into their program, we realize that part of the reason why they're not getting recruited is a lack of belief in self. So what we're having to do first is develop the human. So the human aspect of the heart and the mind, right? How do I believe in myself? How do I know that I'm good enough? How do I speak those things? How do I believe those things? How do I have confidence in those things? And then we start to then teach the understanding of skills, elite level skills and habits. So now we're talking about what does it actually take for me to be an athlete that a coach wants to recruit on the physical side, right? On the habit side. So we're now developing the student. Okay. The last part is the competitor. So now once we have those two things, how do I display that in my presence on the field? How do I display that in my presence in my videos and my social media, things like that? So that's the first part. That's the pre. The post is still very much the same. So for me, it's not enough for the athlete to be recruited. It's enough for the athlete to play and compete with confidence throughout their 4 years of their career. So now when the post side comes, it's like we still have that relationship of when I do go into a program and I'm new to here, we have to shift the mentality of like, let me sit back and watch and see what happens to more so like, no, I was recruited for the skill that I have. Respectfully, how do I show that and demonstrate that and get the playing time? Because I know that the coach recruited me because they're trying to elevate their program, right? Then we're talking about how do I navigate now a whole new lifestyle of structure from high school and scheduling and timing and family to then now we're in college and we have more free time, more we think we have more free time, right?
That's what I was about to
You
say.
don't, but you think you have more free time. It's a different structure. Navigating, the 2 or 3 days of practice or 2 or 3 times a day of practice, plus my homework, plus studying. Now we got travel that goes into that and being gone 4 or 5 days out of the week. How do I navigate that? So that's the student part of that. And then the last part of the competitor is like the pressure of the game itself is huge. And so how do I now navigate that process, ask for help, use my resources, all the things. So they'll go through my program in the beginning. It's a pre-program for the most part, but you don't lose me on the post side. You just get to do that part as an extension of what I get to do with you in the beginning.
Yeah, phenomenal. That sounds awesome. And I was like, yeah, and not only because I mean the prep work as far as getting recruited, right? It's hard, but
Yeah,
also as far as once you are recruited, I think that first year of transition is a
absolutely.
wake-up call, right?
100%.
Nobody is truly prepared for that,
No,
right? And I
at all.
think it and I think it's mainly that time management, right? And
Yeah, big time.
you're used to waking up where kids are waking up at like maybe like 7 to start school at 8, and now
Uh-huh.
you go to college and your day's starting at 4.
Uh-huh. Yep. 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 And you're going to bed at 11, 12 o'clock at night because you got homework to do and studying and all that. So
Yeah.
it's a process. It's a grind for sure.
No, it's definitely beneficial to have a mentor and someone that's lived it, walked it, and deals with it on a daily basis.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice, nice, nice. Coaching perspective, you coached at Menlo, you coached at Notre Dame, the Namir University. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
You did great. You did
Yeah, all
great.
right. And you also coached at University of Washington. How has those been for you as far as all those experiences and whatnot?
Yeah, so I think in general, they've all taught me a lot of different things. Menlo was my first college coaching experience, and so going into that space, I've been coaching for about 20 years in general of my life, and so I started coaching when I was in high school, and so for me, I had already had some experience, but it's always a difference with like, oh, like now I'm coaching at college, like it's a really big deal, and I would say like for Menlo it was an opportunity for me to sort of learn the game, learn the dynamics of a elite competitor and like what that looks like. How do you recruit athletes that sort of fit that? Because in high school you kind of get what you get, whatever's in your district. You kind of it depends on where you live,
Yeah,
but
depends on where you
depending on where you live. But
at.
where I was at, I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and so we got. However, we did have when I finally became a head coach at a high school, we did get athletes who are like who went on to play Division I softball and just now are graduating. So they're amazing. But so just kind of a same thing with like the athletes where it was like, hey, when you get recruited and you go to a school for the first year, you kind of feel like I need to sit back and learn because I don't know the space. But the reality is that I was also very prepared for that space, and I just had to believe in myself enough to know that I was prepared for that space. So I think for Menlo, that was my very first like experience of like how do I eliminate my own self-doubt and disbelief in myself, right? So Menlo was that. And then immediately after that first year, our head coach resigned. And so when a head coach resigns, usually assistant coaches very rarely stay on to that particular program unless the next coach needs that assistance. And so I didn't end up staying onto that program because I got an offer to become a head coach after 1 year coaching college. So that was very intimidating at a D2 level. So I think there's where I learned a lot about the human and human behavior, and I learned a lot about coaching leadership styles and things like that. Because what I realize in all of this is that coaches don't have formal training on how to be coaches, and we don't have formal training on how to build relationships, and we don't have formal training on how to get athletes to push past any trauma, drama, daddies and mamas, we say, that their experiences of life brings to them. And so if you come in with your own harshness or past experience, and they come in with their past experiences, most times they clash, especially dealing with like a school that's a coach had to be let go. So they were recruited by one coach, expected to play for one coach. That coach gets let go. You come in and you're laying the hammer like, well, this is my program. This is how I want it to be. It just doesn't work like that. So very quickly in that experience, I learned about how to navigate coaching the four different types of athletes, I like to call them. And so I said that we have athletes who are doers, we have athletes who are influencers or energizers, we have athletes who are stabilizers, and we have athletes who are improvers. And so in all of these categories, you have to coach these athletes in different ways. And so that's where I really got deep into understanding the human behavior and things like that, and personalities and all that. Got certified in that sort of stuff and mental performance a little bit later. But that was that experience. So learning more about the human behavior there. Then I would say at Washington, that's where I believe the elite competitor is expected to be elite and know how to navigate what it means to deal with pressure. And that's not actually the case, that they don't get those tools at any point in their process. So this is where I went into the mental performance side of things, because for me, it was like being in that space. We had one sports psychologist for 600 athletes like
Ooh.
right after COVID. And so you're dealing with so many different dynamics of an athlete, again, who's supposed to be elite, who has people in their DMs telling them that they suck and they're not good enough or they had a bad game, because people have that entitlement for those athletes, or that expectation that they're supposed to be better and not have struggles or issues. And so when you don't have anyone that supports them in that process, that became really challenging. So that's when I went more into the mental performance side. And so, yeah, I would say at all those places, I learned a lot about confidence, number one. I learned a lot about personalities, number two. And I learned a lot about dealing with pressure and anxiety and stress.
Nice, phenomenal, phenomenal. I love the four types of athletes because you breaking it down like that, you really do. You need all four on a
You
team
absolutely go for it.
because you have players that are just go 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 go, right? And then you have players that they all have their own little the hat that they wear. They have
Yeah,
their spot and what they're supposed to do, and you
yeah,
just want to try to coach them to be able to bring them together full circle.
100%.
Excuse me. And yeah, and mental side, I feel like it's definitely it's becoming more relevant, but
Yeah,
it's not as big as as it should be, right?
sure.
Because being a student athlete, you're not your average person.
Mhm.
You're not what I usually call them NARPs,
Yeah,
normal regular people, you know.
yeah.
But
I
like
know.
your regular student, they wake up, they go to class, they have 2 hour, 3 hour breaks in between. For a student athlete, your day's starting at 4 o'clock and you're on the go, right?
Yeah,
You're on,
yeah,
you're either in the weight room, okay, then
yeah,
boom, okay, you go shower up, clean up, then you're off to class. Then you come back, guess what? You're going into meetings. Then you go back,
yeah,
and then it's right after, right
yeah.
after, right after, right after.
They're always being judged. They're always performing at every point in their life. There's always someone watching to see what they do and how they do it. And so I think that's where the extended pressure comes from. I mean, you get up in the morning, it's like, okay, are you gonna be on time? Are my teammates gonna be mad at me because I'm late, right? You perform in that moment, in practice in the morning. It's like, okay, am I doing enough? Am I pushing my limits? Am I, being too weak or am I being too strong, right? Then it's like I go to class, okay, you're a student athlete. Are you gonna make sure you do your homework? Are you gonna get things done on time? You don't get an excuse because you're a student athlete, right? Then you got to practice. You're being judged by your coaches, right? It's a constant performance mentality, and if you don't have the ability to um, handle judgment or criticism, which I think a lot of athletes don't know how to do, that's the struggle that I think leads to more mental health struggles or mental mindset struggles. Excuse me, not mental health, mental struggles, mental mindset struggles.
Yeah, and I think it's a little different when you're getting heat from people that you don't even know.
Yeah,
Right? It's like I never even met you in my life. I've never shook your
yeah,
hand. I've never sat in the
yeah,
same room, and you're here blazing my DMs. Like, come on,
absolutely,
man. I
absolutely.
love it. I love it, man. When we talk about your journey, you've played and coached at so many levels. What's one experience that truly shaped the way you now guide your athletes? And we kind of touched on it just a little bit right there.
Yeah, so I think I value all of my experiences. So I'm going to tell you one that took me into coaching and then one that took me out of coaching for a little bit. So I would say when I was in high school, I went to a private Christian high school in the Bay Area, California, and I was a really great basketball player. And I only started playing softball in high school. So as a basketball player, I'm only 5'8", but I was a post player for that small school. And we won two state championships, and we did a really, really, really good job. And so about my junior year, sophomore, junior year, I was like, Coach, I want to play basketball at the next level. And I had this conversation with my coach, and I love him to death. He recently passed away, but he's still a big mentor of mine, even in his passing. But he talked about to me. I was like, Hey, Coach, I want to play at the next level. He goes, Okay, I'm gonna give it to you straight. He goes, You're a really good
Hey,
player
I love
at
that.
yeah, yeah. He goes, I'm gonna give it to you straight. You are a really good player right here where you are. Okay. Unfortunately, if you want to play at the next level and you probably don't want to just go to a community college yet, or you don't want to go to community college because my mom wouldn't let me anyway. But that's a whole other story, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But he goes, if you want to play the next level, you're gonna have to do one of two things. You're gonna have to grow, get taller for your position, which is impossible, or you're gonna have to lose some weight, be able to get up and down the court better, be able to be a better ball handler, better shooter. Now he said, it's not impossible. I will help you on all those things. We can definitely get there. However, as I watch you play, I notice how you play the game, how your mind thinks of the game. You are able to see the game differently. You're able to anticipate better. I used to have a lot of steals and assists. I'm able to see people cutting and making good passes to them, getting assists for layups. Right, I'm getting in the lanes, being able to get the ball, making layups, like things like that. Like becoming a better shooter. So he's like, you should consider coaching because you just have a different mentality. So I was like, okay. Like part of me is like, dang, my ego hurts a little bit, but part of me is like, well, that actually might be something I might be good at. So I went down to the local, rec league for basketball in our area, and I started coaching basketball in 8th and 11th grade. So right away, he got me piqued interest into coaching. So I've been coaching ever since that moment, in every aspect that I can. Now, from high school, wanting to play in college, to now being a college coach at the highest level, Power Five, Division One. Again, the experience that I felt when those athletes after COVID had very little support. How in that year, I think there was like 9 to 12 Division One athletes who committed suicide. Recognizing that the pressure that these athletes have without support at that level. Recognizing that they're expected to be this certain type of way without having the skill sets or being coached on those skill sets. Also having coaches who are very well known, very good at coaching the game, but not very good at coaching the human. I realized at that moment that I could not be in this sport without making a difference in a different way for the athletes. So that was what pulled me out of coaching to be more of a mentor, and create a consulting company that helped develop the complete athlete. So I would say those were two of the more pinnacle moments in my careers.
Nice, nice, nice. I love it. Um, when you I, those mentors that put it to you straight, you need those mentors
Have
because
to.
you it's good to dream big, but you have to be realistic at the same time, right?
Yeah.
There has to be a mix between the two. You can't just sit there and dream big, right? Because
Yeah.
it unfortunately it comes down to metrics, right? You're either gonna have the
Big time.
physical the physical anatomy that coaches want, or you don't, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing as far as that stood out to what you're saying is that you had skills that kind of evened it out for those players that did have those physical anatomies that were a little bit, right? Okay, so you
Yeah.
develop those skills that allow you to put yourself in a better position
Yeah.
on the
Absolutely.
court, but also off the court, right?
100%. Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. What is the most common misunderstanding you see athletes and families have about what it takes to be recruited?
Yeah, so I think what we just talked about, like the understanding of their skill and metric level, but I think the other side is timing. I think a lot of families will assume like, oh, like my daughter is only, and when I hear the word my daughter is only, and then they're in high school, I cringe. So
Yeah.
actually, that's one of your speed questions, but it came up here too. But that's one of my biggest things is like there are, especially in the sport of softball, it's what we call an early recruiting sport. So even though there are rules that eliminate the opportunity to talk to coaches specifically at that time, if your metrics and your skills say that you can be recruited at an earlier age and you get on a coach's radar at an early age, your recruiting process will start a lot sooner than some of the other athletes who maybe need to develop their skill more. So I think the misconception is number one, not understanding where I stand in my where my skill and my metrics are, but number two, like I have time.
Yeah, yeah, no, time is the one thing that nobody has indefinite amounts of. It's gonna
Yeah,
keep ticking. It's ticking when you're
100%.
sleeping. But you did say something as far as to be recruited early. What does that look like as far
Yeah.
as the metrics that you meet?
Yeah, so I think it's not a hard question to answer, but part of it is a lot to do with the environment that the athlete is in. Um, there's already like a relationship between high level programs in college and high level programs in travel ball. So like there's already this relationship. So like immediately in that time frame, those travel programs understand what the coaches are looking for at a very young age, and they usually invite those players to play on their teams, right? And then they develop them over that time to be able to showcase or be evaluated by these top level programs. So I would say around the sixth through eighth grade space is a really great time to kind of understand where I lay, where I am, and where my potential could be. So we're already looking at, if you're in seventh, eighth grade, like we're looking at your bat speed, we're looking at your arm strength, we're looking at your speed, right? Because again, just like we have four types of athletes as far as personality goes, we also have like the types of athletes that have roles that we want. Like I said, I call them the four offensive players. So we have speedy speed, or usually they're slappers. And so usually for them, it's more of like disrupting the game. There's more of like using their speed to kind of create chaos. We usually have then contact hitters, which are usually like they're the ones that are going to move those runners, right? Get small base hits, being consistent, right? Then we have more of our gap to gap hitters who have a combination of both of those things. So they usually can have speed and power, a little bit of power. So they're usually the ones who hit doubles and triples, and so they're usually scoring runners, and then again creating chaos on the bases. And then we have power hitters, right? And so the power hitters are the ones that are responsible for scoring those runs, right? Getting hard hits, hitting balls over the fence, or at least deep fly balls. So we need all of these in the game
Hmm.
in order to be successful. So when we are evaluating these athletes, who are the best in at doing those things in those areas? So it becomes more of an eye test, but I think a lot of it is like if you think about the metrics, it's like the speed, the exit velocity, the arm strength. It's the game savviness of like how do I know how to steal bases and kind of create chaos if I'm a slapper. How do I know when to bunt versus slap versus hard slap, like all the things. So it's a game IQ, it's a metrics, it's a visual. So if we can notice that from an athlete at a very early age that they're able to do those things very, very well, and of course there are a lot of things within that, but if we can do those things very, very well, you're going to be on a coach's radar a lot sooner. I'll give you an example. Sorry, I'm answering this a long, long answer, but
Nah, it's all good. It's all good
um,
information. Need to know information.
so I was in Colorado this weekend, and I coached a few showcase games. And there's a couple athletes, what I have to do in those games is basically I have 12 athletes and I warm them up. I don't see much in their warm up, but I kind of have an idea based on the eye test, right? Of like, okay, they look like they could be athletic. They look like they have sort of a swag about them that makes them decent. They have a stronger, bigger stature, right? Or they might be small and they have a little speed, right? So I will make a judgment, preconceived judgment before I even watch them play on the game. Okay. Now, when I go to the game, I'm trying to see does my judgment match, and I don't want to say judgment, but does my evaluation match what they do in the game, in the showcase? So this is no coaching. This is all just play the game against somebody else. And so as I was watching this weekend, I had one girl who was she has a twin actually, but she's a more stronger stature. She's a freshman going into her freshman year of high school, but was a catcher and like could throw girls out real fast, like her like 1.8 down down to second base to get the runners out, right? Then she gets up and she hits a home run. So my evaluation of her matched what she did, right? Then I had
Yeah.
a smaller statured girl who was actually a lefty, could slap but also could hit. And although small, she was a pitcher. She was striking girls out. And then I would say also as a hitter, she's hitting balls to the outfield on line drive shots. So my evaluation didn't match what I saw, but she was able to show a skill set that was far better than even some of the other athletes that fit the eye test, right? So I would say like when you're able to demonstrate those things, like my consistency, and she did this consistently over time. So like she hit every time she got up to bat, she was striking batters out at her style. So now I'm like, okay, great. Like you probably would, a lot of schools will probably overlook you in the beginning until they consistently see what you're doing, and it still give you a chance to play at a higher level. So like that would be sort of how my brain works as a recruiter, as someone who's looking to evaluate athletes. I would say those would be the things that I would say kind of stands out, but also like what we look for. Hopefully that
Yeah.
answers the question.
Nah, you did, you did. And yeah, I have a couple questions as far as based off of your answer. When you're doing the when you're doing the warm up, right? Um, there is an evaluation process, and what you just said as far as does the warm up match their gameplay, right? You talk about swagger. So
Uh-huh.
when you're watching a person when they're out there, is this kid warming up and getting ready for play, right?
Yeah.
Or are they kind of just warming up, kind of just going through the motions, right? So
Yeah.
you talk about composure, you talk about body language. I want to see is this kid coming out to dominate? And
Yeah.
then when I see that as far as in a warm up, does that translate over? Do they keep that same energy going into game one, following into the next game and the next game
Yeah.
and the next game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
A- And when you're in those showcases, they're 9 times out of, or most of the time, they're not playing with their teammates, right? They're working with random players. So it's you want to see how they communicate with
Yep.
strangers. What
Yes.
type of teammate are you?
Yep. Yep.
Is
Yeah.
that is that true?
It goes back to the comfortability of self, and I say that softball is a very much individual team sport. So it's like you have to be good and confident and your best self without other people around you that you're familiar with to shine, right? The recruiting process is yours, right? But you have to be good enough to make the team better, because when the team is better, then we get more draw from coaches. So it's a weird dynamic, but you have to have both. And so when you put your athletes in those showcase events, we're also seeing like, can they be comfortable leading, directing, guiding, following instructions from a random coach? We're kind of testing all those skill sets, those intangible skill sets around could they be a good athlete that we bring into our program based on that.
Nice, nice, nice. And then one other thing, as far as you talked about slappers, have you seen it happen a little bit more as far as at travel ball level, where they're switching fast athletes to the left side? As far as, I wanted to see what your opinion is, that as far as, rather
Yeah.
than just not working, being an overall good hitter.
Yeah, I hate that.
It
That is a touchy subject
is a
because,
touchy subject.
yes, because again, I think I'm just going to go back to this first the statement I said earlier, where a lot of coaches, whether they are college coaches or not, or down to youth coaches, have no formal training of coaching, and you only get the formal training from experience and mentorship, right? And then we now have like these coaches clinics, but you only get it from that. So a lot of people only know what they know, right? And so for a lot of people, it's like, oh, they're fast. Let's put them on the left side so they can be faster to the bag. And that literally has no logical sense to it. Because it's like I told you, there are four types of hitters. Some people are great at hand-eye coordination. And so being a slapper works out for them. It's not necessarily like the skill slapping is extremely challenging. It's harder than hitting, but hitting is also very hard, but it's harder than hitting because there's so many more elements to it. So when you just switch someone over because they're fast without teaching them all the elements of the slapper, like that's dumb. No offense. But to me, you if you could be a gap to gap power hitter on the or gap to gap hitter on the left on the right side, you're going to cause more damage. You're going to be more comfortable, and it's less overthinking that has to happen in this sport because our softball athletes are more than likely overthinkers or super analytical. So like when you give them more things to think about, they're going to struggle more. That's just the nature
Mhm.
of our sport. So no, I hate that. I would say teach them how to hit.
Yeah.
Um, and I think part of it is like getting them to understand their role of like being a slapper. I mean, being a gap to gap hitter is not someone who has to hit home runs. And I think that's where our athletes struggle is because they all think they have to get up there and swing it to the fence. No, like I need you to hit the ball in the gap and I need you to get two bases. Like, right?
Mhm.
At least that's your
Yeah.
goal. So because you're fast, hit the ball hard on the ground or in the gaps and get two bases. Like that's what we want.
Nice, nice, nice. I love that answer. Moving into, as far as this new era of recruiting, how has NILs and the transfer portal changed the game for high school athletes?
Yeah. So I think in general, this only affects a very small percentage of athletes, and I would say the NIL specifically. So, one of the hardest things that I struggle with when it comes to recruiting athletes is that I watch all these athletes play, and majority of them will not go on to play at the next level. It won't happen for a lack of timing, a lack of preparation, a lack of like having a plan, right? So that's number one. Now, the athletes that will get recruited of that, like say 7 or 8%, only 1 to 2% of those are going to play at a very, very power four, power five high level. So those athletes are, I would say, are the ones who are facing the struggle with NIL and even facing the struggle with the transfer portal. And that's because if you are the best of the best, then there's more attention being drawn to you. There's more programs that want you at that high level, and those programs can fund those NIL deals, and they can find ways or have connections to fund those things. And so it becomes more enticing to want to transfer to other programs because of those connections that they have. Right. So I'd say there's two things: the school has either name or they have money. So at that high level, they're going to those schools for one of those two things. Okay. So that's really important. And I would say again, the transfer portal also really, in my opinion, only affects that level. Now, what happens is some of the athletes at that level or who maybe snuck by and got to that level, but they're not getting the playing time or the experience. And that also is a whole other conversation. But if they're not getting the playing time or experience, they assume that like they can go somewhere else and they'll get it. And more times than not, they're the transfer portal and they'll never find another Division I school. And then they're looking for Division II schools. Now that might be where it affects some of those more 7% of the athletes, but not at the rate that people assume. It's not as big of a deal as we think, unless you're in the top 1 or 2% of the athletes in the program in softball.
Okay, understood. Understood. Nice.
Even right now in my current role as a Division I coach, we do look in the transfer portal. We're usually looking in the transfer portal for an athlete. Maybe we lost something and we're like, crap, we didn't expect to lose that person, and so we need to replace it, or we're trying to elevate where we already are. So yes, in those cases, we are looking for experience, but more times than not, like I said, unless you're like that top 1% of the athletes, if you're in the transfer portal because you didn't get the playing time or the experience, it does not matter to like it doesn't help you as far as enticing us to want to recruit to bring you in versus just bringing in a transfer student. So even though you had 1 year of experience in the rigor of the sport, that doesn't necessarily match to your a person that can elevate our program. More so than not, it may turn into, and this is just me, my opinion. Some schools maybe have a different opinion, but to me, it gives me more of a red flag because it's like, well, do you have your preconceived notions about like why you should have been playing, and do you have your mentality of like, well, I'm gonna go here and that's gonna be different, but I don't have to work as hard, or like they are gonna value me more, or like um are you gonna have like this is the way we did it there and this is not how we do it in our program. So we have more, I would say, layers to deal with if you come from a different program and you didn't play versus just recruiting a freshman or somebody out of high school. So like the truth is, in a lot of ways, picking someone from a high school level allows us to mold and shape them how we want, right? And usually we're already recruited athletes for that particular age group anyway. So it's usually more of, like you said, a plug and play. And do we want to deal with whatever their issues are from the last experience, right? So I think that's important. And I also say like a lot of athletes are more lower level D1, D2 programs. And yes, a D2 program would love to say, "Oh, I got this kickback from a Division I school." But more times than not, it doesn't work out that way very well. So again, they go back to like, well, I'm going to look for the high school athletes that I could probably mold and develop versus having someone that have to deal with all of their layers of struggles and issues and traumas and dramas that they already have. So I again don't think it's as big of a deal as people think it is. And they always say like I think 70 to 80% of the athletes that go in the transfer portal don't end up going somewhere else. And
Hmm.
that's partly because of their own misconceptions around their skill sets. And that's where it gets struggles. Like they probably were sought out very early and didn't sort of peak their potential. And so now they're kind of like in the background. And so they're having to deal with this reality that like I didn't live up to the expectation that I was recruited at. And that's a hard thing for someone to deal with. But they assume that like other schools will find that and work with it, and some schools won't. Most schools won't.
Yeah, most
So it's a
definitely.
lot of layers, a lot of layers.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's not as in the way as people think it is, unless again I would say they're top 1% of the program, like of athletics in the country.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, definitely. And I mean, I loved how you put it as far as there's a two sides to look at it, right? So as far as being taking an athlete that's already have uh sort of like their foundation set by another program and being able to pull that back and then try to it's almost like the same thing, right? Versus you're starting from scratch and you have to tear down and then start from scratch.
Yeah.
So it's almost
And
similar.
I would say the high school athlete under they might not understand it, but they at least are more willing to be built from scratch because they have this like I want to play here. They have that eagerness to want to be the best they could be for that particular coach that recruited them, that brought them in, that brings them in. I'm going to buy into the program, right? And I said so I'd say like there's more of a mindset difference there versus like someone who's like, well, I should have done this, I should have had that, this didn't work out. And so now I'm gonna go somewhere else and then hopefully and then have to deal with that again. And so breaking that down is a lot harder than just building up something that from a start point, a starting point.
Hmm. Nice, nice, nice. Awesome. For our young viewers, how early is too early to start recruiting prep? And what can middle schoolers focus on today?
Yeah, what's too early? I think the question is more about skill wise and skill development. Where is the athlete at? So I think there are layers to being recruited. And so the first layer is more of a decision and assessment and self-awareness. So I'm making the decision that I want to play this sport at the highest level. I think I could play this sport at a higher level. And then where am I currently at and where do I need to go to? I think in the middle school age, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, and not necessarily sixth, I would say seventh and eighth grade is really that time frame where I'm in that sort of evaluation process of self. And I would say most college camps will start allowing athletes to come in at eighth grade. So when colleges put out camps, eighth grade is the first grade that usually they open up the camp to. So again, when people say like, "Oh, my daughter is in this grade in high school and it's still early," that's where I cringe because I'm like, no, if you look at the signs, even though we can't talk to them in eighth grade outside of camps, it doesn't mean that that evaluation process has not started. So I would say in the eighth grade, when you're in your self-assessment evaluation phase, you should be going to local tournaments and camps. Um, or college camps, and I would say try to, if you have a division 1 in that area, great. If you have a division 2 in that area, great. Like go to all of them that are in your area so you don't have to worry about travel, and really assess in which of those environments am I thriving, in which one of those environments am I struggling, and where are the gaps in those spaces. So in between that time frame, I need to build that. It could be my strength, it could be my speed, it could be my hitting in general, it could be my fielding, my glove work, my arm work, whatever it is. Like take notes when you go there. Like don't be enamored by the fact that, oh my God, I'm at Cal Berkeley, or like, oh my God, I'm at University of Washington. No, like you can have that enamoredness, but also look to the left and to the right, and let's see like who are they paying attention to, who are they talking to a lot, what are they saying in correction to them compared to me, like are they even giving me feedback, or are they just kind of cheering me on like, oh good job, right? Like
Mhm.
this is key indicators that are either interested in your skill or they don't want to hurt your feelings. Like okay,
Hey.
so take advantage of understanding that process in that eighth grade year, and I would say, or eighth grade year, and then I would say from there, like you got to hit the ground running as far as like, all right, am I where I need to be? And if not, where are the gaps and how do I fill those gaps? So I think now we move into this sort of right at the ninth grade, we're now in the space where coaches are really, you say the second part is like exposure. So now we're like, okay, how do I get as many people to know who I am and many coaches to know who I am with a plan? So now that I know, like, now that I know that I'm at this level, right? And I want to get to this level. Okay, so cool. What do I need to do? Or I'm at this level and I like being at this level. How do I maintain this level? What schools fit in those levels? And then how do I start to go after those schools, right? So how do I get exposure to those types of coaches at those levels? Um, and then we're moving into as you get older, more into just a more space, but just ask for middle school. So that would be what I say for those middle school athletes. First, make the decision, then how do I self-assess, right, and evaluate, and how do I put myself in situations where I can really determine are my skill sets fit for which level or which division here, and am I not so far off from maybe the higher level, or a higher level, and then how do I close the gap between there, getting more training, more lessons, working with programs like yours to build up your strength, your speed, your agility, your mobility, right, your game IQ, your mental toughness, whatever those things are. I would say around that eighth grade year is to get those things started, or seventh, eighth grade year, get those things going.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, I love it. And I also you mentioned as part as when you go to the camps, assess your skills,
Yeah,
right? Be
yeah,
take notes on what's going on,
yeah,
because you don't those camps cost money,
they
right?
do.
The travel costs money.
They do.
So understand when you go in there, it's not just there, okay, the coach is going to tell you do this, do this, do this, right? No, you want to sit there and try to uh, exhaust all the resources that the camp is going to give you, right? The
Absolutely.
coach's knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Criticism,
Mhm.
You know, you want criticism. You don't want them just telling you, okay, good job, good job, good job, right? Because most of
Yeah,
the time you probably already know what you're doing good. You want to know what you're doing bad so that you can
mhm,
elevate yourself and grow.
absolutely. Yeah, and is that a ceiling that you can reach, or have you reached the ceiling that you're going to be at? And I think that's where, like, I think why I get so cringed the most when families say, "Oh, we have time," is because like you miss a very crucial part of the process when you don't start this process until your sophomore year sometimes, because you don't have the luxury as much to self-assess and evaluate and to kind of compare in a productive way on where am I at and where do I need to be, and then create the training. So it gets more expensive because I'm trying to do this in less than a year versus trying to do this over the next 2 to 3 years to develop myself to be at that space when I get there. So I think and then so what happens with that is you don't know the right schools to target. So then you're wasting money going to all of these different variations at camps without a process. So like that's where the planning and preparation is really big. And that's what we try to work with our athletes on, at a very, like I said, seventh, eighth grade, ninth grade level. I would say eighth grade, ninth grade level. We're really working on that.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah. Man, valuable information right there. Valuable information because I had athletes go to a camp and I was like, well, what'd you learn? Did you get anything? Did you get any information? Did
Yeah.
you talk to anybody?
Yeah.
Oh no, no. I'm like, well, what are you paying money for? Come on, like get out
It's
there.
education,
Like
man,
don't
or
go. Yeah.
non-education for sure. Yeah.
There's so much pressure to play on the right team. What advice do you have for families who can't afford the most expensive travel ball experience?
Yeah. So I did a video on this a couple days ago, actually, on TikTok and Instagram. But so if you could find a way to be in proximity to those programs is really important. So I would say one of my first advice was, if you can't get on a more expensive travel team, can you at least ask to work out with them? So some programs will allow you to come. They use I worked at an organization in Washington, and we had what we call org workouts 2 times a month, and so they went from like 5 to like 11 at night, and they did all the different skill levels, and sometimes you could pay like $40 or something to go to those workouts where you can be in the environment of the athletes who are playing on that particular program and get the instruction from those higher level coaches, or that from those coaches that develop athletes at a higher level. Um, so that would be one. And I think that's probably one of my main ones. The other one would be, can I pick up with those teams? Can I find ways to ask if they're ever looking for pickup players or practice players? Can we be a part of that process? Again, getting the environment and the exposure to the environment is super important. And then I think the last one is, again, when we go to these sort of camps or showcases where, no, more camps, like college camps, where we're getting an opportunity to see the other athletes and where they're at. How do I take the lens of what are they doing in this space, and then how are they doing it? And then can I find ways to learn about how to do those things and then incorporate those things into the videos I post, into the videos I share with other college coaches? So, and I'll give you an example of this. Let me just think about an example. Let's say I'm at a camp. Maybe I'm a corner. No, it's a middle infield. A middle infielder, and I'm noticing that this athlete has range. She can cover balls behind third base, behind second base. She can also cover balls to the left, to the right of her. Really smooth, right? And so then for me, I watch myself and I'm like, man, I could barely get to a ball in the backhand side in the 5-6 hole as a shortstop. Okay, so now what I need to do is, okay, I need to work this skill as often as I can, and I need to realize, what do the great athletes do when they work on that side of the field, and then how do I start to incorporate that into my own training. So my videos, you might see in the beginning, I'm only able to get 2 to 3 feet from my backhand. Now, if you look a couple weeks later, or a month later, or 2 months later, now I'm able to get further, right? So now I'm showcasing my ability to grow in that space. I think another side of that is, I have an athlete that I'm working with right now, who was injured for a little bit. So she has been out, but she's a middle infielder. Really great footwork. But I saw her video, and she's struggling with the transfer at second base right now, right? So it's like, okay, what are the greats doing in this sort of space? And then how do I make myself look like what they're doing, right? And so it's taking that information, So I'm going to get better. Like what can I YouTube as far as transfer drills to work on my glove to hand work, right? And so now that I'm able to do that, I'm going to show that progression in my videos. And so that way I can put myself in a better situation, right? Now there's a lot more to this process, but I think those are some of the things that athletes can do if financially they're unable to maybe afford the higher level schools or travel programs. How do I showcase myself as a higher level athlete, even though I'm not on those teams?
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, I love it. And hey, YouTube University is free. Hey.
Absolutely free.
And then
Absolutely free.
and then what follows after that is just your work, right? You
Yeah.
just got to put a little
Yeah.
bit of sweat into it.
And what's really cool nowadays is even like Instagram, more so Instagram and some TikTok, a lot of TikTok too, is that a lot of the current college players do like come hit with me or a day in the life. And so they're a lot of times showing you the drills that they work on in their daily practices at their colleges. So like
Yeah.
use it instead of just scrolling and just aimlessly looking like no, let me go find the top shortstop at Auburn or wherever you're at, UCLA. And I'm sure more times than not, they're going to have something about hitting or something about fielding. And if you go and
Yeah.
watch them and study them, you're like, okay, this is what they're doing. I can completely learn how to do something from them.
Yep. Hey, and all my interviews that we've talked about, there is no reason why in this day and age you should not be successful. The
Yeah.
information that you have access to is at your
Yeah.
fingertips. So
Yeah.
it really comes down to how much do you want it
Yep.
and what do you do on a daily basis?
100%.
Because the
100%.
information is there. All you got to do is just audit what you watch, right? Spend time on your craft, right?
Yep.
The same
Yeah.
2, 3 hours that you sitting there watching, scrolling on TikTok, watching dance videos, uh, nonsense, right? You can sit there and really break down your technique and do the same thing. Not watching 2, 3 hours of it, that's just too
Yeah.
much time. Get the
Yeah.
information, go practice 2, 3 hours.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Nice. But if you're not a big hitter, home run hitter, or pitching 70 plus, how do you what do you look what do you look at on the recruiting side for these athletes as far as where to work at and how to stand out in those aspects?
Yeah. So I do think there is a little bit of back to I think self-awareness is huge. So I think like um I always say this statement like just because people don't find value in you does not mean that you're not valuable. So like what that means is a lot of times we're searching for validation and value from people that will never see it. So I had an athlete in particular that I used to work with on the mental game. And then as soon as I got to University of Washington, they assumed that they had an opportunity to play at the University of Washington. And so they did go there and they're like, oh, like, can we use your connections and all that? And I'm like, no, unfortunately you can't. Like, and I can tell you, like, no one at the camp noticed you or even wanted to recruit you. And that's no offense, but no offense, but that's what it
It
was.
it just
It,
doesn't work like
it
that.
doesn't work like that. And so, but it does not change the fact that you are valuable. It's just more of like, how do I put myself in those environments where people value that? So like uh, when I'm at the recruiting process, there's some things that certain things I look at. So I'm a hitting coach. So I do recognize all of the different aspects of hitters, but if you can help my offense, regardless of what you look like, I'm gonna choose you. So I think that's really important. So whether you are a power hitter, that of course gets everybody's attention, but more so than that, I want to see like how your at bats are. I think so. Side note, at the showcases this weekend, one of the coaches yells to the players, "If it's close, swing." And he goes, "We didn't. You didn't come to a showcase to walk." And I'm like, "No, but you came to a showcase to showcase your skill. And if it's a bad pitch and you're swinging at bad pitches because you want them to swing, I don't want to see that." So as a hitting coach, I'm looking at the whole picture of philosophy of like, are you swinging? Do you know what pitch you're looking for, right? Are you hitting that pitch well? Are you leaving the other pitches alone? Because for me, like you're helping my offense when you're able to do that, right? So that would be something that I value. Some coaches at that same showcase will not value that same thing. So it's again about finding the schools that value the things that you bring. So you might not be the flashiest, you might be more quiet, And I think the biggest thing is just showcasing what you have and believing in what you have and realizing that it's enough and that the right school will find you, what will see that in you. But you have to still
Hmm.
showcase it. So if you are someone that maybe, number one, you got to find one of the skills to be good at in hitting. So you either got to be a really good slapper with speed. You got to have speed. You got to have game savviness. You got to have good contact and consistency, right? You got to be able to move a runner. You got to be able to score a runner. You got to be able to do one of those two things. If you can't do any of those things, unfortunately, you can't play softball at the next level. So like, I hate to hurt your feelings if that's the case, but you have to be good at one of those things. And so if you are not good at those things, then you need to invest in a hitting coach that's going to get you good at one of those things. Okay. And
Hmm.
don't go to a hitting coach that just tells you to swing up at a launch angle. Okay. Because if you're 5'4" and always trying to hit the ball in the air, unfortunately, you're still not going to get an opportunity. So if you're 5'4", show me that you can be consistent in your hitting. You don't got to have power, but can I hit the ball right between second and third, middle, infield and outfield? Can I hit down the line, right? Can I get hits that move runners, right? Can I hit behind the runner? Okay, great. Like then I'm gonna own that skill, right? So I think like that's the biggest thing you have to get to understand this process. And then you have to be, I think hitting is first. Like we make a lineup based off of hitters. Once we have that understanding, now we're going into how can you fit into the field in order to get on the lineup as well. So now it's like, okay, you got to be good at one of these things. I got to be a good I got to have good glove work, good game IQ. I got to have good arm, right? Or I have to have good range, right? So you have to be able to have one of those things in order to be good on defense. That has no size, no height, no you have to have strength, but no size or no height limit to that. It's more about a skill set. So you can develop those as well. So I would
Yeah,
say
you can develop
you can
skills.
100%. So for me, I would say in the showcases, you got to be able to showcase the offensive side the most. But then, like, how am I thinking ahead? Like, did I get runners on first and third? Okay, cool. We get the out at two, but I'm also watching the runner at third. Like, you can showcase that in your skill sets. And it's like, okay, dang, okay, she recognizes the game, right? Or I'm a first baseman. Okay, cool. I got the stretch. There's a runner at two. Okay, I'm looking at she going to third. Can I get that runner at third? That's the other side of it that like we don't teach. That's the student, the IQ side of it, that if you
Yeah.
can demonstrate that you're good at that, that's awesome, right? Like I think one of the biggest things for outfielders, since we're talking about different positions, but I think outfielders, one of the biggest struggles that I see in showcases is two things. You get a ball and you hold it while there's runners on base and you don't get it in. Or there's a runner in scoring position. You get the ball and you try to launch the ball home versus hitting your cut when we know that the runner at home is already probably going to be safe. But now we've given the other runner an extra base, right? So the one who hit the ball, now she's going to two and they score. So we got another runner in scoring position versus hitting your cut. One run scores, one run stays at first base. Now we don't have a runner in scoring position. We have a double play opportunity. So these are IQ things that
Hey,
athletes think
hey,
about. We
that's
want to
high.
showcase our arm, but if our arm is going to get us in another position where they're going to score more runs, we don't want that either. So again, these are just things that like you have to learn over time.
Yeah, no, that's high level. That's high level. And I mean, does your I'm assuming your company offers that though, right? You guys work on
Absolutely.
that IQ.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, tap in with her. You talk a lot about leadership and confidence. How can athletes actually train mental skills the way that they train hitting and throwing?
Yeah, that's a really great question because your brain is very much so a muscle and your heart is a muscle too. And they have to go through the same amount of training that you do for the skill if you want them to work in moments where you need them to work. So I think like that's just equated to skill. Um, the more times I think with hitters, the struggle is that a lot of times with hitters they don't recognize or understand their bodies and how their body works and moves. And so why it doesn't translate to the game is because I don't actually know what it's supposed to feel like, or what I'm actually looking for, what my plan is to be successful. So the same is true with the mental game. If I don't know what it should feel like, or I don't know how to adjust from a training perspective, my mentality in those moments, it's going to be really hard to be successful. So I think what's important is a lot of times families go to books or podcasts, which I think are really, really great. But just think about this. Would you learn how to drive or swim by reading a book or listening to a podcast? right? Two things that can be very, very dangerous if you don't know how to do them well, right? The
Mhm.
same is true with mental performance. The same is true with hitting. The same is true with fielding, is that if you really want to be successful in that, you have to get and sometimes purchase or pay for a coach or mentor who can actually give you the true skills to work through that. So when you have a mental performance coach, you're able to gain skills and how to implement those skills in those environments. You practice them over and over, and then when they become relevant in your in moments of the games or in decision making, you have those things to fall back on as a second nature versus a freak out fight or flight sort of mentality. So the same is true with fielding and hitting and all the things. When I do it and I rep it enough, I think we don't have enough mastery. But when I rep it and do it enough, it becomes mastery. It becomes second nature, and then I just do versus think, right? Or do and feel, which is with the feel versus think versus like thinking and then trying to feel.
Mhm. Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, valuable information right there. Because it's big. It's big, right? It's a give and pull, right? You have to have great mental health as far as to be able to perform, but you also have to be able to learn how to manage it so that
Yeah.
even if something does come up,
Yeah.
right, mid game or prior to the game, you still got to
Yeah.
be able to know how to handle it, put yourself right, and get your mind right so that you can go out there and perform at a high level.
Absolutely. So confidence comes from two places. It comes from self-talk, right? So our belief in ourselves, our ability to say nice things to ourselves, and preparation. You have to have the preparation part in order to feel they go hand in hand. In order to be confident, you have to have both. You can't have one, you can't have the other, you have to have both. So most of
Hmm.
the most successful athletes have to have the ability to know how to mentally, heart and mind check in and know that they're valuable and they're good enough and they have what it takes from these perspectives, but then they have to also feel it, believe it, and see it on the physical side, the preparation side, in order for those things to really come together and be successful.
Nice, nice, nice. What was one moment in your career that forced you to grow mentally, even more than physically?
Yeah, you're thinking like playing career, would you say?
Uh, yeah, let's go playing career.
Because I talk a lot about, I don't talk much about my playing career ever.
Yeah, let's talk
It
about
wasn't
playing
the best.
career.
It wasn't the best as far as like this experience, but I would say for me would be, and why I say it wasn't the best is I got recruited by one coach. I went through a coaching change, and so we had a new coach my sophomore year, and pretty tough guy, which I was used to that, like pretty hard nosed guy. But immediately, that was probably one of my first experiences with realizing that like where my current skill was at, probably at my hometown where I was able to get away with some things. I think it really showed up there that like no, the athletes who are coming up now have way more experience and opportunities to be to gain skills to be successful than I did. And my first year of college was horrible as far as like just the training and coaching aspect. So um when they brought in the new girls, it was like really quickly you notice like, oh crap, they're actually way better than me. So mentally, how do I deal with that? Always being the top athletes in my high school. And then how do I find ways to fight through my own negative self-doubt around this girl's going to come in and take my spot as a freshman and I'm now a junior and I'm trying to figure out, the game. So for me, that was probably the hardest part of navigating that process. And so I'll be honest with everybody. I didn't quit because of that, but like I didn't actually finish playing my 4 years of softball at college because there's a lot of things going on with my own life. But in general, like I wish that I would have completed it. And I think if I would have had more mental fortitude to be able to understand and navigate all the tools that come or the experience that comes with being a college athlete in life, that I probably would have been in a better situation than I am today. And so that's partly why I do this work, because there are a lot of things that are going to happen for you to, again, to get to college. But when you get into college, there's a lot of things that happen. You're far away from home, you lose family, you can't go home for breaks all the time, right? You're dealing with um, boyfriends, girlfriends, you're dealing with bad grades and professors, and you're dealing with traveling, and you're dealing with, I have to work now, like, or financial aid, or whatever it is. There's so many things that come up that we're unprepared for until that moment happens. And so I think that's why like the post work of what I do is also very important.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah,
And I'll tell
definitely.
everybody here, this is what one thing, the reason why I feel like there's a gap. I never actually played travel ball. So like I played little league and through my middle school years, and then I got to college. Like I said, basketball was my sport. I just so happened to be a varsity softball player and was good enough. And based on everything, I had a conversation with my coach about, my basketball career. I started reaching out to softball coaches, and I got an opportunity to go play in college, for softball. But I never had the development or the training that came with a travel ball experience, and I was able to get there, but I was not able to succeed there because, again, when those athletes came after me, they did have some of those experiences that I did not have competing at a high level. I only played at a small private Christian school, so it worked out, but it didn't work out,
Hmm.
So the
Yeah.
reality of it all is like now in hindsight, that's why I'm an advocate of travel ball. And even though it can be expensive and lessons and training, it does put you in a situation that does get you prepared more than any other situation that you're in.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And it's one thing as far as getting there, but it's also another thing as far as producing,
Absolutely.
right? And being able to
Absolutely.
go out there and compete as far as because when you're there, right? Like you said, you're good in your hometown, right? You might be that star player, you might be that top player, but guess
Yep.
what? When you hit that campus come freshman year, guess what? You're back at the bottom because everybody's
Uh-huh.
good.
Everybody
Everybody
good.
everybody can throw, everybody can hit, right? What's going it's that work ethic and the seconds, right?
Yeah.
It's milliseconds that's important,
100%. 100%.
right? Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. What should athletes start doing now to prepare for life after softball, whether it's in business, coaching, or something totally different, right? Because I mean, it's inevitable. Sports is gonna end,
Yeah.
right? Not only small portion get to play at the next level after high school, and even smaller portion get to play have the opportunity to play after collegiately.
Yeah, I think you got to do the human work first. So I always go back to that. Like, if I don't know what my values are, if I don't know what my strengths are, then I usually will crumble and fall in any of these aspects, life, game, sport, whatever it is. If I don't know those two things, they're gonna be really important. So values is my driving forces, my things that what's important to me and why. And I think as a lot of I'm going to speak specifically from the area that you're in currently. South Bay, Central Valley, a lot of athletes in California, in those more smaller family oriented communities, they always say that their why is their family. And I think that's a great place to start. However, like it's some for a lot of people, it's not sustainable enough when making decisions that are going to be important for their life. So like sometimes, like I think what athletes go to is like my family's most important. But what happens is something happens in the family and it completely like deters them from being able to like try new things and push themselves further. So I think like what's important to you should be your family, but it also be something that's for you, right? So find out what my why is or what my important is, um, family and outside of family, right?
Hmm.
I would also say once I know my values, it helps me make decisions as far as like what school I want to go to, what type of coaches I like, where I want to play at, what people I want to potentially date, what person I want to work for. Like all of these things will drive all of that. So know that. And the second part is knowing my own value and my strengths, so that way I'm not trying to be something I'm not in all of those spaces either, where I end up living or playing in a miserable situation because I'm trying to be something that I'm not.
Hmm. Yeah, and definitely, like we talked about, as far as nice to have, it's a necessity. Dream big, but you also have to have an understanding of yourself and understanding of the values that you bring.
Yeah.
But you also want somebody that's going to see those values because you don't want to be a part of a program that
Yeah.
doesn't value
What you bring to the table.
your presence,
Yep.
because
And that's the same
it's
with the
not going to
work
be
environment.
enjoyable.
Yeah, and it's the same with the work environment. That's the same with the relationship. Like if you are dating someone or you're playing for someone that doesn't see the value of the strengths that you bring to the table, like you're gonna always think that there's something wrong with you. You're gonna always settle. You're gonna always kind of put yourself in a headspace that's not healthy, right? And so when you have those things, you're able to be like, no, like that's cool. Like that's your opinion of me. That's fine, whatever you think. But like that, I know that that's not me. So like, let me find someone or another place where that does uh come up higher for those people.
Mhm. How do you decipher between that? Because as far as like um competing, right? So
Yeah.
if someone kind of tells you no, like when and you're willing to fight for it as far as no, I'm gonna do this. But at
Yeah.
what point do you figure out or you decipher where it's just not a healthy space?
Yeah, and I think what you're asking is how do I know when I push through the no and when I say it's time to move on? And so I think you have to understand the difference between the no being because of a something that can grow like a skill set, or if it's a no because of a more permanent thing that's you. So for instance, this is the dumbest example, but like height. Let's say like everybody that a school recruits is, you know, 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", and higher, and then I'm a 5'4" athlete. So again, this is not a really great example,
Eh,
but this is an example. I can't physically change this about myself, and I can go into that program because I'm fighting and I show them my skill. But at the end of the day, if they only like that, they only like that. And so no matter how much I give them everything else skill related, that doesn't change the fact that they don't like that. They only like the other thing. So like, or if it's like, hey, right now you're hitting uh 1 out of 5 times. I need you to hit 3 out of 5 times. That's a skill. So it's like, okay, cool. Like I'm not giving up, even though they're telling me right now you're not going to play because you're only hitting 1 out of 5 times. But if I continue to work on this, I can get to 3 out of 5 times. That's a skill that can be grown. So I think recognizing or deciphering the difference between the two, again, very low level
yeah.
example, but hopefully that makes sense to what I'm saying. So there's some times where the no is keep growing, and sometimes the no is like you just don't fit the square doesn't fit in the circle, right? And so how do
Yeah.
I move past that?
Okay, nice. Nice. Cool. And I mean, parents play a crucial role, right? They in their not only as far as recruiting but development.
Yeah.
How can parents help their athletes build confidence, their identity, and not solely tie it to performance?
Yeah. Um, I want parents to know that whether they mean to or not, and more times they don't mean to, their athlete is always trying to please them. So like they're always trying to do well for them. They want to make them proud. The same is true with the coach and athlete relationship, but really with the parent relationship. So um regardless of if you say it or not, they already assume it. So like I think the biggest thing is like for instance with grades or graduating, like they have this pressure sometimes that they put on themselves because they know they have to do this in order to make you proud, right? Or they have to do this because they know that this is your expectation of them. You may have never said it. You may have like been like, yo, just you don't got to get straight A's, just do what you got to do to graduate, right? But in their mind it's like I have to be perfect at this thing because my parents want me to. So I think understanding as a parent is that even the nonverbal things that happen in your relationship with your athlete is going to heighten it 10 times. Okay, so that's number one. So when you do now speak on their journey, imagine the 10 times now being vocalized to go even higher, right? So like it already affects them on another level. So I think what's really important for parents is how can I best support my athlete by asking more questions, like, so don't go silent, but how do I ask more questions that drives them to create their own responses to the question? So like um you know after a game, first of all, you shouldn't talk to them after a game about the game, but like let's say a couple days later it's like, hey, so tell me like how you felt the game went for you the other day, right? Like, and they're like, oh, I felt like this was this and this was that. Okay, okay, all right. I don't give your opinion. Just say, okay, all right. So then what do you need help trying to figure out how to work on that? Do you need some advice on that? Or do you want to get an extra lesson with your coach this week? You tell me what you want in that situation and let them say, I probably just feel like I need some rest, or and there's a balance between that, but or
I
it's
wouldn't have used that one as the first one.
yeah, yeah. Or I would say, hey, like I think if you could get me in with Coach Zay again this week, then I think I'll be on a better track for next week, right? So like that takes maturity from the athlete, but I think if you can find ways to don't go silent, but how do I ask questions in supportive manners versus judgmental manners? And so another example of a judgmental manner would be like, well, didn't feel like or I know you probably didn't feel like you did good today. So what do you want to work on? Like that's a completely different question than saying, hey, so tell me how the game went for you. Like how did you feel like the game went? And then okay, cool. So all right, so what do you think you want to work on this week? Do you need some extra support here or there? And that creates a different dynamic than, yeah, let's definitely get you in with Coach Zay this week because man, you know.
Yeah,
So I
definitely,
think like that's
definitely.
important. I think understanding from the beginning that your athlete wants nothing more than to make you proud. They want nothing more than to meet your expectations. And so there's already the pressure that comes with that. And so if you can help eliminate that pressure by having those healthy conversations with them in the right timing, I think it's going to be in a better situation for you, both of you guys and your family and your relationship.
Nice, I love it. Yeah, nah, definitely. Because I mean, like when you talk about parent-athlete relationships, sometimes you just see a little bit more of a spectator rather than a parent,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you talk about home base, they just need that little bit of structure, that little bit
Yeah.
of break from coaching, right? They just
Yeah.
went 2 3 hours of just
Yeah.
coaching. If they had a
Yeah.
bad game or a bad practice, they've been they've been getting that criticism. They've
Yeah.
been getting. Sometimes it just needs to be more of a structured talk, right? As far
Yep.
as how do we improve it, you know?
Yep. Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I think that again, that takes maturity. And if your athlete is not someone that is pushing to do the work, don't push them to do the work. I think in the beginning, not in the beginning. I would say when they're more older. I think in the beginning you might have to give them guidance on that, but after that, it's more of like, how do I let them drive their work ethic? How do I let them drive that true desire? So when people like my content on social media, like usually athletes will reach out, but well, actually, usually parents reach out, athletes every now and again reach out. But parents will reach out, well, what do I need to do for my daughter for this? And I always ask, my first question is usually, well, did your daughter ask you to reach out, or does your daughter know that you're reaching out about this? Or and if so, like maybe have them reach out because then I know that they want it and not you want
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
So for me, that's usually the first thing I need to know is like, is the athlete willing to do this or not? And if they're not asking for it yet, then like they're not ready. And that's where the decision part comes in that middle school years. Like they're making a decision that I want to play at this level. And if they're not making that decision yet, don't force the decision.
Mhm. Yeah, because you can't want it more than they do, right? It's not
Absolutely.
it's not your goal. Is they got to have those own goals and they got to have that own drive to be able to
Yeah.
put their best foot forward every time. All right. Same thing as far as when we bring athletes into training. It's you come in and I give you what a workout's gonna be, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I tell you, once they get through their assessment, right? Okay, this is the work. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Go home, talk it over. Because as far as from here on out, it don't get easier. It just gets
Yeah.
familiar.
It's harder. Yeah. And you got to do it by yourself because ain't nobody
Yeah,
going to do it with you. When you get to the college level, either you got it or you don't. The work ethic, or you
hmm
don't have the work ethic.
yeah. And sometimes it's just as cut and dry, right? So when you talk
Yeah.
about as far as competing, uh, there's going to be certain measurables that you are not physically able to meet, right? So as far as when you start at a lower level and you build that confidence, you build that identity about yourself, it's going to
Yeah.
help when you face those tough decisions as far as, okay, this coach doesn't really value this or he doesn't see this in me. Maybe I got to look for different avenues, right? And
Yeah.
division 1 may not be where it's at, right? That's not your caliber of
100%.
that's not your caliber of ball, right? Your skill
Yes.
set might be there, but like you said, most coaches are gonna have those standards as what
Yeah.
they want, right? Physically and then competitively.
Absolutely.
And then as far as the College World Series this year, did anything stand out to you or that kind of shook you? Were like, dang, I didn't expect that player to perform like that. I didn't expect that team to perform like that.
No. Because I think that they all are great. I think what I noticed the most about the World Series, which goes back to like the process of recruiting, is if you go back and watch that, there were a lot of big moments from freshman athletes. And I think again, this confirms the fact that um when you get into a program we're looking for the athlete to come in to elevate our program. That's why we recruit them versus like we want you to kind of get used to the program and then build over time. No, like if you're getting recruited, you absolutely can play at in that first year. If you have the right mentality, the mindset, the right competitor's edge, the right work ethic, right, and the right confidence, and I think leadership and coachability style. So for me, like that was probably the thing that I already knew this, but like I think it reconfirmed or affirmed that even more that freshman athletes can make big, huge impacts in games that we don't realize they can. The other thing I want to say about that is a parent asked me about a mask the other day, and I would say both the pitchers in the World Series were face masks. So I'm not an advocate for face masks, especially at like other positions like third base and all that. But the balls come up hard, but be better at your reaction. But I will say you don't not get recruited because you wear a mask. And I think that's a misconception that a lot of travel ball coaches will throw at players. The top two pitchers in the country both wore a mask.
Yeah. I love that. Get your reactions fast.
Yeah, you got to get those up. But if you're a pitcher at 43 feet, which then turns into 38 feet, okay. But if you're at 60 feet, you need to be better at your reactions.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, no, most definitely. As far as with the World Series becoming more popular, right? As far as with the view count, I think the view count was almost like at like 2.4,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
right? Something ridiculous. It was like almost a little bit just under a million over the year prior. So as far
Yeah.
as with softball becoming more popular, um, it's on the rise as far as I hope that I pronounced her name right. As far as what Kim Ng, right? Ng, you know who I'm talking about. It's in Athletes Unlimited. She made a partnership
Oh,
with
the manager. Yes, yes, yes.
made a
The director.
yeah. So as
Yeah.
far as with Athletes Unlimited Softball League partnership with the MLB, how will this shift the shape of the future, the pathways for future athletes coming up in softball?
Yeah, I think it's a very great thing. I think it helps expose our sport to the world more. I think in everything, and I think you have to realize this, I think as athletes, we start to play the sport as for the love of the game, and then it grows into a business very quickly. And I think the important part to understand is that like the softball world now that there is big financial backing from a major company, a business, we have to continue to produce a product that elevates the business. And so you're going to start seeing again from the youngest levels more specialization early. And I think there's a necessity for development, but I don't think there's a necessity for specialization. But realizing that like we're starting to recognize these prospects at a very young age, even younger, and like where they're going to be in their potential as they get older. Because so the athletes that we're recruiting into these higher level programs, we're going to be assuming that they also will then transition into pro athletes. So that whole pressure, this gets a little bit more heightened as well. But it's a business. So I think we just have to recognize what comes with the business means that we have to be able to create dollars and awareness. And so that's going to be the products we're trying to create at a very young age. And so that creates more pressure, more mental struggles as well. So I think working and navigating that would be really important. Now, I don't know if they'll ever like recruit out of high school to play in pro level. I don't think we're gonna get there like they do baseball, but that's the baseball formula. So that would be something that maybe I don't know might happen, but I don't think it will. But something to think about.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I
Yeah,
and I tell the athletes all the time, what an opportunity is to be an athlete these days, right?
absolutely.
You got
Yep.
a whole bunch of opportunities as far as just an added perk as far as besides playing the sport that you love. There's just so
Yeah.
many opportunities. And with
Yeah.
that said, I mean, you talked about a business model. What is your opinion on Texas Tech's transfer portal strategy as far as signing five All-American from the transfer portal, including powerhouse players like Caitlin Terry, Taylor Pennell, and then while signing their pitcher Najee Kennedy, they signed her with a seven-figure NIL deal. What is this aggressive approach towards NILs, that strategy in the portal? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so just basically back to what I just said earlier, like that's what we have to understand is that now we're softball for a very long time was kind of under the radar, and it was kind of more about like the atmosphere it brought, the love of the game, the competitiveness. But now it is definitely a business. It's more about the dollars. It's more about how the dollars make sense. And again, like I said, we're now thinking about these athletes in the future of like, can they now become future names in the pro league? And so like we're trying to build up that recognition early, and the business aspect of the game earlier. So I would say like good for them, that they're able to do that. It does create a wedge between the haves and the have-nots, right? Like I'm at a HBCU Division I school, and like I don't think that we would ever be able to match $1 million, let alone $20,000, like
Yeah.
and
On
so
top of the scholarship, you
on
know?
top of the scholarship. So I would say like it does put a wedge that, and I think, but that goes back to like when we are recruiting the athletes, like um understanding like what our type of athlete is compared to what their type of athlete is. And so I think kudos to them that they're able to do that. I think it's a really great thing for our sport because I mean, again, we're building a business at the end of the day. We're trying to create recognition, and pros and cons come with everything that we do, right? I would say again, just the wedge between that. And I think for them, like now what's their new mission? Like to keep their school relevant, and if they have to invest the money to be able to do that, it's important. It's just like for me with my business, I might not be giving away money, but I'm giving away information that creates um better opportunities for future athletes and their families, right? And for some people, that's worth a lot of money, right? So it might not be the monetary value, but it's something that people are really in need of and desire because they want this outcome. They're doing the same thing at Texas Tech. They're doing this, putting this money for amount of value that they need and where they want what recognition they want for their program. And so they're able to do that. So I think that's important. Again, back to what you said, we said a while ago with the NIL and transfer portal is that this though only affects like less than 1% of our sport. And so the other athletes, again, the self-awareness is really important just because a lot of us more times than not will not be in that situation, versus would be in that situation. So it's
Hmm.
just keeping the reality of like when you're picking a school, like don't pick it for the NIL. Trust me, that school will pick you for the NIL deal if they think that that's where you are. Same with Power Five. Um, you can have aspirations for that, but don't pick it. Like it will pick you. If
You,
they really truly believe that that's you're going to be able to elevate their program at that level. And more times than not, a lot of us aren't getting picked for that. So like now the reality is like, how do I still play this game for the original purpose of the game, which was to compete, to get an education, right, to have an opportunity in the future that sets me up for something different like life.
nice, nice, nice. Cool. And coach, if you had to go back as far as to your younger self with the information that you know now, um, over the course of your career and being have your coaching experience, how would you go back and position yourself for success?
I do believe without the experiences that I've had, I wouldn't know the information that I know. So there's this saying that your pain creates your purpose sometimes. So I think that there's some relevancy to that. But if I could go back, I think one of the main reasons I got into sports was because of what I said like earlier at the beginning, like your past trauma, drama, daddies and mamas. And so like for me, the original reason why I got into sports was on a more sentimental level. Like my parents got divorced when I was 7 years old, and so I was seeking a lot of attention and validation that I was not receiving. And I felt like when I did well in my sports, like my dad would show up. So like for me, like if I could go back and find other ways to just speak like, hey dad, I need you around more, or like find ways to kind of, I don't know, so this is a deeper answer, but I think like if I went back to the root of where I struggled the most, I think if I went back to the root of that, my life would probably be a lot different. I don't, who knows where I would be, but I do believe in having to go through some of the struggles of life that it allowed me to learn along the way, and find self value and discovery that I didn't necessarily need from family. And so that's why I go back to like some people say like they're really big family people and that's their why, and it's really great. But for some people, like it might not be. So what is the thing that drives them and how do they find ways to work through that? And so I think for me, that would be what I would push for differently.
Nice, nice, nice. Excuse me. Awesome answer. Last question. What does the phrase tunnel vision mean to you?
Tunnel vision, it's locked in, it's laser focus, is no distractions that take me away from my goals. That's what I get from that.
Nice. I love it. I love it. And coach, for any athletes or parents looking to get in contact with you, can you go ahead and please provide that information to them? Your socials,
Absolutely.
links.
Yeah, so on Instagram and TikTok, you can find me on 360_athlete. That's where you'll find me for all the most important information that you need.
Good. Nice, nice, nice. Cool. Coach Carter, I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate the information, valuable information for these young athletes and parents to be able to either kickstart their recruiting process, elevate their game, or if they're already deep in the process and how to navigate it. I truly appreciate it on behalf of TVA and myself. I want to say thank you for being able to share this information.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And you guys can go ahead, follow her at 360_athlete on Instagram for all that valuable information.
Appreciate you tapping in with us. If you found value in this conversation, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a teammate or athlete who needs to hear it. We're building a community focused on growth on and off the field. We've got more guests lined up, more knowledge coming your way. It doesn't stop here. Follow us on Instagram, tunnel.vision.athletics, for updates, behind the scenes clips, and more content to help you level up. Drop a comment if there's a topic you want us to break down or we did not cover in this clip. Keep working, stay hungry, and remember, your story's still being written. Catch you all on the next one.